The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure of crystal and metal that orbited a dying star. Inside, representatives from 100 worlds gathered around a circular platform. The air hummed with translation devices, turning thousands of languages into words everyone could understand. Ambassador Taesung stood near the back of the human delegation. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had served Earth for 30 years, always working for peace, always seeking compromise. Today, he felt a cold weight in his chest. At the center of the chamber, High Commander Velthar raised his forearms in a gesture of dominance. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with scales that gleamed like polished bronze. His species, the Vrix, had conquered 40 star systems in the last century. They were warriors, bred for battle, proud of their strength. The Vrix Empire announces its expansion into Sector 7, Velthar declared. His voice boomed across the chamber. This includes the worlds currently occupied by the humans. We give them 30 days to evacuate. Murmurs rippled through the assembled aliens. Some species nodded in approval. Others remained silent, unwilling to challenge the powerful Vrix. Taesung stepped forward. His footsteps echoed in the sudden quiet. High Commander, those worlds are home to 12 million human citizens. They have farms, cities, families. We have been there for generations. You cannot simply take them. Velthar's eyes fixed on the human. There was amusement in his gaze. Your kind has always been weak, Ambassador. You build farms when you should build fleets. You talk of peace when you should prepare for war. The Vrix take what the Vrix need. Your people may leave peacefully or they may be removed. The choice is yours. We will defend our homes, Taesung said quietly. His voice did not shake, but inside, fear gnawed at him. The human fleet was small compared to the military powers in the galaxy. Earth had always focused on trade, exploration, and diplomacy. Their warships numbered in the hundreds while the Vrix commanded thousands. Velthar laughed. The sound was like rocks grinding together. With what? Your merchant ships, your mining vessels? I have seen your military, human. It is nothing. My fleet will sweep through your colonies like wind through grass. Other species in the council began to murmur agreement. The humans were known as peaceful traders, scientists, and artists. They had been part of the galactic community for only 200 years. They were the newcomers, the young ones, still learning their place among the ancient civilizations. Then, from the highest tier of the council, a voice spoke. It was old and dry, like wind over desert sand. Stop. The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned upward. There, in a seat that had been occupied for 1,000 years, sat Councillor Orn Kesh. He was ancient beyond measure, a member of the species known as the Watchers. His kind had existed for millions of years, observing the rise and fall of civilizations across the galaxy. They rarely spoke. When they did, others listened. Ornkesh rose slowly from his seat. His body was thin and fragile, wrapped in robes that seemed to shimmer with starlight. His face was weathered, his eyes deep pools of accumulated wisdom and sorrow. I have witnessed the birth of 3,000 species, Ornkesh said. His voice was soft, but it carried to every corner of the chamber. I have watched empires rise and crumble to dust. I have seen wars that consumed entire star clusters. I have observed acts of great beauty and terrible horror. He descended from his high seat, moving slowly down the levels toward the central platform. Every being in the chamber watched him. Even Velthar stood silent, waiting. In all my long existence, Ornkesh continued, I have learned one truth above all others. The most dangerous species is not the one that appears strongest. It is the one that has learned to hide its strength. He reached the platform and turned to face Velthar directly. Though the ancient being was barely half the Vrix commander's height, Velthar took a step backward. You look at the humans and see weakness, Ornkesh said. You see their preference for peace and call them soft. You see their small fleet and call them defenseless. You are making a mistake that will destroy your people. The humans are nothing, Velthar growled, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. They have no warrior tradition, no history of conquest. They are farmers and merchants. No, Ornkesh said, and now his voice carried an edge like a blade. They are survivors. Do you know what I have seen in the human archives? Do you know their history? The ancient being turned to address the entire council. Before the humans reached the stars, they spent 10,000 years at war with themselves. They fought with sticks and stones, then with swords and spears, then with guns and bombs, then with weapons that could split atoms and poison the sky. They created machines of war so terrible that they nearly destroyed their own world. Not once, not twice, but dozens of times they stood at the edge of extinction. Taesung felt a chill run down his spine. The other species were listening now, truly listening, and yet they survived. Ornkesh continued. They learned, they adapted, they created treaties and laws to bind themselves. They chose peace. But make no mistake, they did not forget how to wage war. They simply chose not to. There is a difference between a species that cannot fight and a species that chooses not to fight. Old fool, Velthar said, but the words sounded hollow. You speak of ancient history. The humans have been peaceful for 2 centuries. They have grown soft in their comfort. Ornkesh turned his ancient eyes on the Vrix commander. I was there during the Fracture Wars 300 years ago. A human colony was attacked by raiders. Only one human ship was present, a small cargo vessel with minimal weapons. The raiders had 20 warships. Do you know what happened? No one spoke. The human ship rammed the raider flagship, Ornkesh said, at full speed. Both ships were destroyed, but the explosion disabled 5 more raider vessels. The surviving humans evacuated to the colony surface and fought for 6 days with mining equipment and improvised explosives. When help finally arrived, the humans had killed 800 raiders. 43 humans survived out of 2,000. The council chamber was absolutely silent. That is who you are threatening to attack, Ornkesh said. A species that will sacrifice everything when pushed to the edge. A species that invented total war and practiced it on themselves for millennia. They have been peaceful because they choose peace. But if you take that choice away from them, High Commander, you will face something far worse than you can imagine. Velthar's scales bristled. The Vrix fear nothing. Then you are a fool, Ornkesh said simply. He turned away from the commander and walked slowly back to his seat. I have given my warning. I have done what I can. The rest is up to you. The council began to dissolve into chaos. Species argued among themselves. Some called for intervention. Others supported the Vrix right to expand. Taesung stood in the midst of it all, silent and still. Velthar pointed one massive claw at the human ambassador. We will begin with the world you call New Horizon. In 30 days, that planet will be ours. If you resist, your people will die. This is my promise to you. The Vrix commander turned and left the chamber, his delegation following behind. One by one, the other species departed. Soon, only Taesung and Ornkesh remained. The ancient being descended once more and approached the human. I am sorry, he said quietly. I tried to warn them. Taesung looked at the watcher with sad eyes. Will it matter? No, Ornkesh admitted. Velthar is proud and foolish. He will attack New Horizon. And then... The ancient being paused. Then, the galaxy will remember why some species choose peace not out of weakness but out of mercy. Taesung nodded slowly. We will try to evacuate as many as we can. It will not be enough time, Ornkesh said. I know this, you know this, and soon the Vrix will know it too. But by then, it will be too late for them. The old watcher placed a gentle hand on Taesung's arm. I have seen what your people are capable of when they stop holding back. I saw it during the Fracture Wars. I pray the Vrix will listen and withdraw, but if they do not... He trailed off, his ancient eyes filled with sorrow. May the stars have mercy on them, because your people will not. Taesung left the council chamber and returned to his ship. He had messages to send. Earth needed to know. The colonies needed to prepare. And somewhere deep inside him, in a place he rarely acknowledged, Something old and dark began to wake up. The humans had chosen peace for 200 years. They had built a civilization based on cooperation and hope. But their choice was about to be taken away, and the galaxy would learn what happened when humanity stopped choosing peace. The morning sun rose over New Horizon like it did every morning, painting the farmlands gold and orange. Governor Ji-Wan stood on the balcony of the administration building, watching the light spread across the valleys below. It was beautiful. It was home. In 3 days, if the warnings were correct, it would be a battlefield. Ji-Wan was 45 years old and had lived on New Horizon for 20 years. She had raised her children here, buried her husband here when sickness took him 5 years ago. She knew every town, every farming community, every face in the markets. 2 million people called this world home. 2 million people who now faced an impossible choice. "Governor, the defense meeting is starting," her assistant said from the doorway. Ji-Wan nodded and turned away from the sunrise. Inside the conference room, the faces were grim. Captain Hyun-woo stood at attention near the display screen. He was young for a military commander, only 32, with sharp eyes and a jaw set in determination. His garrison consisted of 200 soldiers. It was meant to be enough for peacekeeping, for handling small emergencies, not for fighting a war. "What are our options?" Ji-Wan asked. Though she already knew the answer would not be good, Hyun-woo activated the display. It showed New Horizon, a green and blue marble hanging in space. Around it, red markers indicated the approaching Vrix fleet. They will arrive in approximately 60 hours. Intelligence reports 7 capital ships, 30 cruisers, and over 100 support vessels. They are bringing enough troop carriers to land 50,000 soldiers. And we have? Ji-Wan already knew, but she needed to hear it said aloud. 200 soldiers, 3 defensive platforms in orbit, designed for asteroid deflection, not combat, 6 atmospheric fighters meant for patrol duty, and approximately 8,000 hunting rifles scattered among the civilian population. Hyun-woo's voice was steady, but everyone in the room understood what those numbers meant. Dr. Yuna spoke up from her seat near the back. She was the colony's chief medical officer, a woman who had delivered hundreds of babies and saved countless lives. "How many can we evacuate?" "Earth sent every available transport," Hyun-woo said. "But with only 60 hours, we can get maybe 300,000 off-world. That leaves over 1.5 million here." The room fell silent. Ji-Wan felt the weight of those numbers crushing down on her shoulders. "I have tried contacting the Vrix commander," she said. "I have sent messages offering negotiation, offering compensation, offering anything. He has not responded." "They don't want to talk," Hyun-woo said quietly. "They want the planet." Ambassador Taesung sent word that the Galactic Council refused to intervene. "We are on our own." Ji-Wan looked around the room at the faces of her staff. Some showed fear. Others showed anger. All of them showed determination. "Then we prepare for the worst. Captain Hyun-woo, you have full authority to organize whatever defense you can. Dr. Yuna, prepare the hospital bunkers and set up emergency triage centers. Everyone else, we need to move as many civilians as possible to the underground shelters. If they want this world, we will make them pay for every inch of it." The next 60 hours passed in a blur of desperate activity. Families lined up at the spaceport, hoping to be among the lucky ones chosen for evacuation. Children were prioritized first, then the elderly, then the sick. Mothers kissed their children goodbye and sent them to the stars, knowing they might never see them again. Fathers stayed behind to help with the defense. Captain Hyun-woo worked without sleep, turning every able-bodied person into a resistance fighter. They dug trenches around the capital city. They moved supplies into the bunkers. They distributed weapons and taught farmers how to shoot. It was not enough. It would never be enough. But they tried anyway. Dr. Yuna prepared the medical facilities for mass casualties. She stocked bandages and medicine in every shelter. She trained volunteers in basic first aid. She tried not to think about how many people would need her help in the coming days. On the final night before the invasion, Ji-Wan broadcast a message to the entire planet. Her face appeared on every screen in every home. "My friends," she said, "tomorrow the Vrix will arrive. They come to take our home by force. They believe we will surrender without a fight. They believe we are weak because we choose peace. They are wrong." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I will not lie to you. We face overwhelming odds. Many of us will not survive what is coming, but we have a choice in how we face it. We can run or we can stand. We can surrender our dignity, or we can show them that humans do not give up their homes without a fight. I am staying, Jiwon continued. Captain Hyunwoo and his soldiers are staying. Dr. Yuna and her medical staff are staying. We stay not because we want to die, but because some things are worth fighting for. Your homes, your families, your freedom. If you choose to go to the shelters, no one will judge you. If you choose to stay and fight, we will stand together. The broadcast ended. Across the planet, people made their choices. Some went to the shelters seeking safety in the deep places under the ground. Others picked up weapons and stood ready to defend their world. The Vrix fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of metal locusts. Their ships blotted out the sun. On the bridge of the flagship, Fleetmaster Krell observed the small planet below. It looked peaceful, defenseless, easy prey. Scan for military installations, he ordered. 3 orbital platforms detected, his sensor officer reported. Minimal armament, several small ground bases, new capital ships, no fighter screens. This will be over quickly, Fleetmaster. Krell smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Broadcast a demand for surrender. Give them one chance to evacuate peacefully. The message was sent. On New Horizon, Governor Jiwon received it and composed a response. It was simple and direct. No. Krell's smile faded when he heard the humans' response. They refuse. These weak creatures dare to refuse? He slammed his fist on the command console. Target the administration building. Show them what defiance costs. The flagship's main cannon fired. A beam of superheated plasma lanced down from orbit and struck the capital city. The administration building vanished in a fireball that could be seen from space. Governor Jiwon died instantly, along with 3,000 people in the surrounding streets. The invasion had begun. Krell deployed his forces with brutal efficiency. Troop carriers descended through the atmosphere, landing near every major city and settlement. 50,000 Vrix warriors poured out, armed with advanced weapons and backed by armored vehicles. Captain Hyunwoo watched from his command post as the enemy landed. His 200 soldiers were spread across 3 defensive positions. It was not enough to stop the invasion, but it was enough to slow it down. All units weapons free, he ordered. Make every shot count. Make them pay. The first wave of Vrix soldiers advanced on the capital city, expecting little resistance. Instead, they walked into a carefully prepared kill zone. Mines exploded under their feet. Hidden machine guns opened fire from concealed positions. Snipers picked off officers and vehicle crews. The Vrix were shocked. They had expected surrender, not ambush. They had expected farmers, not soldiers. The first attack wave took heavy casualties before they even reached the city limits. But there were too many of them. For every Vrix that fell, 10 more advanced. They brought tanks and artillery. They called in airstrikes from their ships in orbit. Slowly, methodically, they pushed forward. Hyunwoo's garrison fought like demons. They retreated from one position to the next, making the enemy pay for every street, every building, every inch of ground. When they ran out of ammunition, they used explosives. When they ran out of explosives, they used whatever they could find. 3 hours after the invasion began, Captain Hyunwoo found himself in the ruins of the capital's main square. Of his 200 soldiers, only 37 remained. They were surrounded, low on ammunition and out of options. Captain, one of his soldiers said, we should surrender. We have done all we can. Hyunwoo looked at the young man. He was barely 20 years old. If we surrender, they will kill us anyway. You have seen what they do to prisoners, it was true. Reports from other cities told of massacres, of civilians executed in the streets, of families burned alive in their homes. The Vrix were not just conquering New Horizon. They were making an example of it. Then what do we do? The soldier asked. Hyunwoo checked his weapon. He had 3 rounds left. We fight until we cannot fight anymore, and we make sure Earth knows what happened here. He activated his communicator one last time. This is Captain Hyunwoo of the New Horizon Defense Force. To anyone listening, to Earth, to the fleet, to humanity. They gave us no mercy. Give them none in return. Remember New Horizon. He turned off the communicator and raised his weapon. His 37 soldiers did the same. They had no illusions about surviving the next few minutes. But they would go down fighting. The Vrix assault began. The human soldiers fired until their weapons were empty, then fought with knives and fists and rocks. When Captain Hyunwoo finally fell, he had killed 17 Vrix warriors. His soldiers fought just as hard. When the battle ended, not one human soldier had surrendered. The invasion continued for 3 more days. Across New Horizon, human resistance fighters struck from the shadows. They sabotaged Vrick's equipment. They ambushed patrols. They rescued civilians from execution sites. The Morning Star arrived at Earth 3 days after escaping New Horizon. The small freighter limped into orbit, its hull scarred by plasma burns, its engines barely functional. Inside, 300 refugees huddled together, traumatized and broken. They carried with them footage that would change everything. Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun stood in the command center beneath Geneva, watching the footage on the main screen. He was 60 years old, a career officer who had spent his entire life preparing for a war he hoped would never come. His face was like carved stone as he watched Governor Ji-won's building explode, as he watched civilians gunned down in the streets, as he watched Captain Hyun-woo's last stand. "How many?" he asked quietly. "Best estimates say 847,000 dead," his intelligence officer reported. "Another 1,000,000 enslaved or missing. The Vricks have occupied the entire planet." Dong Hyun closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, they were hard and cold. "Send word to all human worlds. Mobilization Order Alpha, every ship, every soldier, every resource. We go to war." "Admiral, the Council has not authorized—" "I do not care about the Council," Dong Hyun interrupted. His voice was quiet but carried absolute authority. "They had their chance to act. They chose to do nothing. Now we act. Send the order." Within hours, the message reached every human colony and outpost. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Young men and women lined up at recruitment centers by the millions. Factories that built civilian ships began retooling for military production. Mining operations diverted all resources to the war effort. Trade ships turned around mid-journey and headed for military conversion facilities. On Mars, 19-year-old Jae Hwan watched the footage from New Horizon and felt something break inside him. He had cousins there. He had friends. They were all gone now. He walked to the nearest recruitment center and volunteered for pilot training. "Why do you want to fight?" the recruitment officer asked. Jae Hwan's answer was simple. "Because they need to pay for what they did." He was not alone. 400 million humans volunteered in the first week. It was the largest military mobilization in human history, not just soldiers but engineers, doctors, pilots, technicians. Everyone wanted to contribute. Everyone wanted revenge. In a secret facility on Luna, Colonel Minji prepared her special operations teams. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but her reputation was legendary. During the Fracture Wars, she had led commando raids against pirate strongholds. She had survived missions that killed everyone else on her team. She was the best at what she did, and what she did was not pretty. "Our mission is simple," she told her assembled commandos. "We infiltrate Vrick's territory. We destroy their supplies. We kill their commanders. We make them afraid to sleep at night. We become the nightmare they cannot wake up from." Her teams deployed within days, slipping through Vrick's border defenses like ghosts. They struck fuel depots and communication relays. They poisoned water supplies and sabotaged weapons factories. They left no survivors and no evidence except bodies and burning installations. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Ambassador Taesung arrived to find the chamber in chaos. Species that had remained silent during New Horizons' invasion now screamed for human restraint. "You must stop this mobilization," the Deltharian representative demanded. "You are destabilizing the entire region. The Council will not tolerate such aggression." Taesung looked at the alien with cold eyes. "Where was the Council when our people were being slaughtered? Where were you when our children burned?" "The Vricks have a right to expand their territory," another representative argued. "It is within the guidelines of—" "Guidelines?" Taesung's voice cut through the chamber like a knife. "You speak of guidelines while nearly 1,000,000 humans lie dead? You sat in this chamber and did nothing. You watched and you waited and you hoped the problem would go away. Well, it has not gone away, and now you will see what happens when you push humanity too far." "Are you threatening the Council?" someone asked. "No," Taesung said quietly. "I am telling you what is going to happen. The human fleet will deploy. We will reclaim our world, and we will make sure the Vricks never threaten us again. The Council can support us or it can stay out of our way. Those are your only options." He turned and left the chamber. Behind him, the Council erupted into arguments and accusations. Taesung did not care. Words were for diplomats. What was coming next was for soldiers. Back on Earth, Admiral Dong Hyun activated Protocol Reaper. It was a military doctrine developed centuries ago, based on ancient human warfare. Total war, no restraint, no mercy. complete destruction of the enemy's ability to fight. It had been filed away and forgotten, something too terrible to ever use. Until now, the protocol required complete industrial conversion. Every factory, every resource, every ounce of human productivity focused on a single goal: victory at any cost. It was brutal and efficient, and it transformed the entire human civilization into a war machine within weeks. Ships that had been designed for exploration were retrofitted with weapons. Cargo haulers became troop transports. Even civilian passenger ships were armed and pressed into service. The human fleet grew from 800 warships to 12,000 in just 2 months. Jae-hwan completed his accelerated pilot training in record time. He was assigned to a squadron called the New Horizon Avengers, made up entirely of survivors and refugees from the invaded world. They all wore black armbands with the names of their dead written on them. They took a blood oath. They would not stop fighting until every Vrix warrior who participated in the invasion was dead. High Commander. Velthar received reports of the human mobilization with dismissal and contempt. He sat in his fortress on the Vrix homeworld, surrounded by advisors and generals. They are panicking, he told his council. Building more ships will not help them. We have been at war for centuries. They are farmers and merchants playing at being warriors. My lord, one of his intelligence officers said carefully. The scale of their mobilization is unprecedented. They have built more warships in 2 months than most species build in 10 years, and their special forces have destroyed 17 of our supply depots. Sabotage and terrorism, Velthar waved dismissively. Coward tactics. When our fleets meet in open battle, their numbers will mean nothing against our experience and discipline. But privately, Velthar felt a touch of unease. The old Watcher's warning echoed in his mind. He pushed the thought away. The Vrix had never lost a war. They would not start now. Fleet Admiral Dong-hyun stood on the bridge of the battleship Retribution, watching his fleet assemble in Earth orbit. 12,000 warships of every size and class. It was the most powerful military force humanity had ever created, but he knew it was not enough to guarantee victory. The Vrix had superior technology and more combat experience. What humanity had was something else, something that had won wars throughout history: motivation. Every human in the fleet knew what they were fighting for. They had seen the footage. They had heard the last messages from New Horizon. They knew that this was not about territory or resources. This was about survival, about justice, about showing the galaxy that humanity would not be bullied, would not be conquered, would not surrender. All ships report ready for departure, the communications officer announced. Dong-hyun took a deep breath. 2 centuries of peace were about to end. Humanity was going to war and the galaxy would never be the same. Signal the fleet, he ordered. Set course for Vrix space. Battle speed. And broadcast this on all frequencies, human and alien alike. He paused, choosing his words carefully. They would be remembered. This is Fleet Admiral Dong-hyun of the Human Defense Forces. To the Vrix Empire, to the Galactic Council, to every species listening. You took our world. You killed our people. You showed us who you truly are. Now we will show you who we are. We are coming, and we will not stop until justice is done. There will be no negotiation. No surrender, no mercy. Remember New Horizon. The human fleet departed Earth orbit in the largest military formation in galactic history. 12,000 ships moving as one, heading toward Vrix space. The journey would take 3 weeks at maximum speed. In those 3 weeks, Colonel Minji's Special Forces teams continued their work deep in enemy territory. They struck 53 targets, killed 200 VRX officers, and destroyed enough supplies to support an army for a year. They sent a message with every attack. Humanity was coming and nothing would stop them. On the Vrix border worlds, garrison commanders began to report strange sightings. Human ships in stealth mode, observing their defenses. Human scouts watching and waiting. The Vrix had always been the hunters. Now for the first time they felt like prey. Jae-hwan and his squadron trained constantly during the journey. They practiced attack runs, evasive maneuvers, and coordinated strikes. They studied Vrix ship designs looking for weaknesses. They prepared to die because they all knew the odds, but they also prepared to take as many enemies with them as possible. Do you think we can win? One of his squadron mates asked during a rare rest period. Jae-hwan looked at the young pilot. I do not know if we can win, but I know we will fight, and I know that even if we lose, We will hurt them so badly they will regret ever hearing the name New Horizon. The Battle of Crimson Nebula began at dawn, though in the darkness of space dawn was only a concept carried in human minds. 12,000 human warships faced 7,000 Vrix vessels across a field of glowing red gas and ancient starlight. It was the largest space battle in a generation, and it would be remembered for centuries. High Commander Velthar watched from his flagship as the human fleet approached. He expected them to move cautiously, to probe his defenses, to seek favorable positions. That was how civilized species fought wars. That was what he had prepared for. Instead, the entire human fleet accelerated to maximum speed and charged directly at his center line. "What are they doing?" his tactical officer shouted. "They will be torn apart." Velthar stared in disbelief. "They are insane. All ships open fire. Destroy them." The Vrix fleet unleashed a storm of weapons fire. Plasma beams and missile salvos filled the space between the two forces. Human ships began to explode, torn apart by the overwhelming firepower. In the first 30 seconds, humanity lost 300 vessels, but the humans did not slow down. They did not retreat. They kept coming, firing everything they had, their ships blazing like meteors as they crashed into the Vrix lines. Admiral Dong Hyun stood calmly on the bridge of the Retribution as explosions lit up the view screen around them. "All ships maintain attack speed. Focus fire on their capital ships. Do not stop. Do not slow. Make them pay for every meter of space." A missile struck the Retribution's port side, tearing through armor and exposing 3 decks to vacuum. Alarms blared. Crew members rushed to seal the breach. "Damage report," Dong Hyun demanded. "Port shields down to 30%. We have lost weapon batteries 4 and 5. Casualties on decks 7 through 9. Can we still fight?" "Yes, sir." "Then we continue." Dong Hyun turned to his weapons officer. "Target that Vrix dreadnought at heading 270. Fire everything." The Retribution's main guns spoke, sending beams of focused energy across the void. The Vrix dreadnought's shields flickered and collapsed. Secondary explosions rippled along its hull. All around them, the battle descended into chaos. Ships exploded. Debris scattered like rain. Fighters swarmed like angry insects. The red gas of the nebula turned orange and yellow with the light of dying vessels. Jae-Hwan flew his fighter through the madness, his hands steady on the controls despite the chaos around him. His squadron had already lost 12 pilots in the first wave. He had stopped counting the enemy fighters he destroyed. All that mattered was killing more of them, making them pay, making them hurt. "Break left." His squadron leader screamed over the comm. Jae-Hwan rolled his fighter just as a Vrix interceptor blazed past, its weapons missing him by meters. He swung around, locked onto the enemy, and fired. The Vrix fighter exploded in a ball of flame. "That is for my cousin," Jae-Hwan whispered. His ammunition counter was dropping fast. He had maybe 30 seconds of sustained fire left. When it ran out, he knew what he had to do. Every human pilot knew. They had all made the same choice before leaving Earth. A Vrix carrier loomed ahead, launching fighters from its massive bay. Jae-Hwan saw his opportunity. He checked his fuel reserves. "Enough for one last run. Wing leader, this is Jae-Hwan. My ammunition is depleted. I am going in." "Negative. Return to the Retribution for rearm." "No time," Jae-Hwan interrupted. He switched off his comm and pointed his fighter at the carrier. Maximum speed, full-powered engines. The small fighter accelerated like a bullet, racing toward the massive ship. Vrix point defense systems opened fire. Explosions rocked his fighter. His shields collapsed. Hull breaches lit up his damage display. He kept going. 500 meters. 300. 100. "For New Horizon," he said quietly. His fighter struck the carrier just as it was launching another wave of fighters. The small ship's fusion reactor detonated on impact. The explosion tore through the carrier's launch bay and deep into its interior. Secondary explosions followed. Within seconds, the entire massive vessel was breaking apart. Jae-Hwan never knew that his sacrifice destroyed a ship carrying 3,000 Vrix warriors. He never knew that 5 other fighters followed his example and struck other capital ships. He never knew that his death would be taught in military academies for generations as an example of ultimate dedication. He only knew that he had made them pay. The ramming tactics shocked the Vrix fleet. They had never faced an enemy willing to throw away ships and lives with such casual brutality. It went against every tactical doctrine they knew. It was wasteful. It was inefficient. It was terrifying. They are ramming our ships. Velthar's tactical officer reported in disbelief. Even when they have functioning weapons, they are ramming us. Velthar watched in growing horror as a human destroyer, its weapons destroyed and its hull torn open, accelerated to maximum speed and crashed into one of his heavy cruisers. Both ships exploded, taking 2 nearby frigates with them in the blast. "Pull back the fleet," he ordered. "Reform at the nebula's edge. We need to reorganize." But pulling back was not simple when the enemy was willing to chase you at suicidal speed. Human ships pursued the retreating Vrix vessels, trading hits, exploding, but always pushing forward. They fought like demons, like machines, like beings who did not care if they lived or died as long as they hurt the enemy. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it finally ended, the Crimson Nebula was filled with debris and the dead. The Vrix fleet had lost 2,000 ships. The human fleet had lost 4,000. By any traditional measure, it was a Vrix victory. But Velthar did not feel victorious. He felt shaken. His fleet had retreated. Human forces now controlled the nebula and were advancing deeper into Vrix space. And worst of all, the human fleet still had 8,000 functioning warships. They had lost a third of their force and they were still coming. In the ruins of New Horizon, now renamed New Horizon Sector by the Vrix occupation forces, Colonel Minji led her special operations team through the underground tunnels. Her team of 12 moved like shadows, invisible and deadly. They had been behind enemy lines for a month now, and in that time, they had killed over 100 Vrix soldiers and commanders. Tonight, their target was Fleet Master Krell, the commander who had overseen the massacre. Intelligence reported he was inspecting the occupation garrison in the old capital city. Minji intended to make sure he never left. They emerged from the tunnels 3 blocks from the garrison headquarters. The city above was barely recognizable. Buildings lay in ruins. Streets were empty except for Vrix patrols. The occupation had been brutal and complete. Minji felt no emotion as she looked at the destruction. Emotions were for after the mission. Right now she was a weapon pointed at the enemy. "Alpha Team, take position on the roof. Bravo Team, cover the exits. Charlie Team, with me. We go in fast and quiet. Krell dies tonight." They moved through the darkness, avoiding patrols, killing sentries silently. Within minutes, they had breached the garrison headquarters. Krell was in his office, reviewing reports, confident in his safety. He never heard Minji enter. He never saw the knife. He barely felt the blade slide between his ribs and into his heart. As he died, Minji leaned close and whispered in his ear, "This is for Governor Jiwon. This is for Captain Hyunwoo. This is for Dr. Yuna and all the others. Remember New Horizon." Krell's body was found the next morning, displayed in the center of the garrison courtyard. Written in Vrix blood on the wall behind him was a simple message in both human and Vrix languages. "You cannot hide. We are coming." The assassination sent shockwaves through the Vrix command structure. If Fleet Master Krell could be killed in his own headquarters, no one was safe. Vrix commanders began sleeping with guards outside their doors. They stopped inspecting frontline positions. They became afraid. The human fleet continued its advance, fighting a dozen more battles across Vrix space. Each battle followed the same pattern. The Vrix fought with superior technology and tactics. The humans fought with suicidal determination and absolute refusal to retreat. Sometimes the humans won, sometimes they lost. But they always kept coming, always kept pushing, always made the Vrix pay in blood for every victory. Admiral Dong Hyun stood in his command center, now relocated to a captured Vrix outpost, and reviewed the casualty reports. In 6 months of fighting, humanity had lost 7,000 warships and 2 million soldiers. The losses were staggering, but the Vrix had lost 5,000 ships and even more soldiers. Their empire was in chaos. Their supply lines were shattered. Their commanders were terrified. "The Galactic Council is demanding we cease hostilities," his communications officer reported. "They threaten to declare humanity a rogue species if we do not stop. Tell them we will stop when New Horizon is free and the Vrix have paid for their crimes," Dong Hyun replied without emotion. Not before. High Commander Velthar sat in his command chamber on the Vrix homeworld and stared at the tactical display. Human forces were 3 star systems away. They had destroyed or captured 40% of the Vrix fleet. They had killed hundreds of thousands of Vrix warriors, and they showed no signs of stopping. He had tried to negotiate. The humans refused. He had tried to intimidate them with shows of force. They responded with even greater violence. He had tried to appeal to the Galactic Council. The Council was powerless to stop the human war machine. The human fleet hung in space like a sword held over the throat of the Vrix homeworld. Admiral Dong Hyun watched the planet on his view screen, seeing the cities that glowed like jewels against the darkness. 8 billion Vrix lived down there. Most of them had never held a weapon. Most of them had never voted for war. They were just people living their lives, unaware that their leaders had doomed them. "Sir, we have weapons lock on all primary targets," his tactical officer reported. "The planet-cracking missiles are armed and ready. We can fire on your order." Dong Hyun looked at the red indicators on his display. Each one represented a weapon that could split continents and boil oceans. Humanity had built them centuries ago and then locked them away, promising never to use them. But the authorization codes had been sent from Earth 3 days ago. The order was clear: end the Vrix threat permanently. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Vrix homeworld," communications announced. "It is High Commander Velthar. He wishes to discuss terms of surrender." "Put him through." Velthar appeared on the screen. He looked different than he had in the council chamber a year ago. His scales were dull. His eyes were tired. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked like despair. "Admiral Dong Hyun," Velthar said slowly, "I am prepared to offer complete and unconditional surrender. We will return New Horizon. We will pay any reparations you demand. We will disarm our military. Just please do not destroy our homeworld." Dong Hyun studied the Vrix commander in silence. Where was this offer when our people begged for mercy? Where was this surrender when Governor Jiwon tried to negotiate? When Captain Hyunwoo asked for terms? When Dr. Yuna pleaded for the lives of her patients? "I was wrong," Velthar said, and the admission seemed to physically pain him. "I was arrogant and foolish. I believed we were stronger. I believed you were weak. The old Watcher tried to warn me, but I did not listen. I thought I knew better. I was wrong about everything." "You were wrong," Dong Hyun agreed coldly. "And 800,000 humans died because of your mistake. 2 million more died in the war that followed. So tell me, High Commander, why should I show you mercy that you denied to them?" Velthar closed his eyes. "You should not. I deserve to die. My commanders deserve to die. But the billions of civilians on my homeworld, the children who played no part in this war, they do not deserve extinction. If you must have vengeance, take it on me. But please spare my people." Dong Hyun felt the weight of the decision crushing down on him. Every part of him that was a soldier, that remembered the footage from New Horizon, that honored the sacrifice of everyone who had died in this war, wanted to press the button. Wanted to end the Vrix completely. Wanted to make sure they could never threaten humanity again. But another part of him, the part that remembered why humans had chosen peace 2 centuries ago, hesitated. If he destroyed the Vrix homeworld, he would be doing exactly what they had done to New Horizon. He would become the thing he was fighting against. "Stand by," he told Velthar, and cut the transmission. He turned to his command staff. "I need options. Real options, not just revenge fantasies." His officers looked uncomfortable. "Sir, Earth's orders are clear. We have authorization to use the planet crackers." "I know what the orders say," Dong Hyun snapped. "I am asking what we should do, not what we are allowed to do. Speak freely." There was a long silence. Then his communications officer, a young woman who had lost her entire family on New Horizon, spoke up. "My parents died in the first bombardment. My little brother died 3 days later. Every night I dream about them. Every day I want the Vrix to suffer like we suffered." She paused, tears running down her face. "But if we destroy their world, if we kill billions who had no part in this, we become the monsters. My parents raised me better than that. They taught me that justice and vengeance are not the same thing. I do not know if I can forgive the Vrix, but I know that killing their children will not bring my family back." Other officers nodded slowly. The tide in the room was shifting. Dong Hyun felt it and knew his decision was made. "Open a channel to all human forces and to the Galactic Council," he ordered. "It is time to end this." The transmission reached every human ship, every colony, and every member of the Galactic Council. Admiral Dong Hyun's face appeared on screens across known space. "This is Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun of the Human Defense Forces. 1 year ago, the Vrix Empire attacked our colony of New Horizon without warning or mercy. They killed 800,000 civilians. They enslaved the survivors. They showed us what they believed was strength. We responded with the full force of human military power. In the years since, we have destroyed the Vrix fleet, occupied their territory, and brought their empire to the edge of extinction. We have the capability right now to destroy their homeworld and end their species forever, and we have been authorized to do so." He paused, letting the weight of those words sink in. "But we will not. We will not become the thing we fought against. We will not massacre billions to avenge our dead. That would dishonor every human who died believing in our better nature. Instead, we offer the following terms. The Vrix Empire is dissolved as of today. All Vrix military forces will disarm immediately. New Horizon will be returned to human control. The Vrix will pay reparations for the next 100 years. High Commander Velthar and all officers who participated in the New Horizon massacre will stand trial for war crimes, and the Vrix species will be placed under human supervision for the next century to ensure they never threaten galactic peace again. These terms are not negotiable. The alternative is complete annihilation. The choice is yours. You have 24 hours to decide." Dong-hyun ended the transmission and slumped in his chair. He suddenly felt very old and very tired. "Did we do the right thing?" his tactical officer asked quietly. "I do not know," Dong-hyun admitted, "but it was the human thing to do. And that has to be enough." The Vrix accepted the terms within 6 hours. There was no choice. The alternative was too terrible to contemplate. Across Vrix space, military ships powered down their weapons. Bases surrendered. Commanders transmitted their unconditional surrender. On New Horizon, the few remaining Vrix occupation forces laid down their arms. Human Marines landed to take control of the planet and begin the long process of rebuilding. In the ruins of the capital city, they found the underground shelters where 12,000 human prisoners had been kept. Most were barely alive, starved, and tortured. But they were alive. Among them somehow was Governor Ji-won. She had survived a year of captivity through sheer willpower and determination. When the Marines pulled her from the darkness, she was so thin she could barely stand. But her eyes were still defiant. "Did we win?" she whispered. "Yes, ma'am," the Marine replied. "We won. The Vrix surrendered. New Horizon is ours again." Ji-won closed her eyes and finally allowed herself to cry. She had survived. Her world had survived. The price had been terrible, but they had survived. Dr. Yuna was found in another shelter, caring for the other prisoners despite her own injuries. She had kept detailed medical records of everything that had happened, every atrocity, every death. Her documentation would be crucial in the war crimes trials that followed. The Galactic Council convened to discuss the situation. Ambassador Taesung stood before them, his face hard and unyielding. "The Council asks that humanity show restraint in administering the Vrix territories," the Deltharian representative said carefully. "The situation is delicate." Taesung's laugh was bitter. "Delicate? Where was the Council when the situation was delicate a year ago? Where were you when our world burned? You stood by and watched. You did nothing. And now you dare to lecture us about restraint? The Council must maintain neutrality." "Neutrality?" Taesung interrupted. "You were not neutral. You were complicit. Your silence gave the Vrix permission to attack us. Your inaction told them there would be no consequences. And when we defended ourselves, you threatened to declare us rogue." He looked around the chamber at all the assembled species. "Let me be very clear. Humanity did not want this war. We chose peace for 200 years. But when we were attacked, when our people were slaughtered, we defended ourselves with everything we had. And we won. We proved that humans are not weak. We are not easy prey. We are capable of terrible things when pushed too far. But we also proved something else." Taesung continued, his voice softening slightly. "We proved that even in victory, even with the power to destroy our enemies completely, we choose mercy. We choose to be better than those who wronged us. That is what humanity means. That is who we are. From this day forward, let it be known throughout the galaxy. Humanity prefers peace. We seek cooperation and friendship with all species. But if you bring war to our people, if you mistake our kindness for weakness, you will face the full fury of a species that spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war. We are capable of remarkable compassion. We are equally capable of terrible violence. The choice of which you meet has always been and will always be yours." The council chamber fell silent. No one had a response. What could they say? The humans had proven everything they claimed. The war crimes trials began 3 months later. High Commander Velthar and 200 of his officers faced a tribunal made up of human judges and representatives.